Hello world, and welcome to this edition of Tech on Fire with Blaze. I'm Blaze Stewart, architect at Winterlight, and today we're going to be looking at how to get custom data into Syslog and how to connect that up to Log Analytics. I'm going to be using Untangle Firewall for my demo today. Hi guys, today I'm going to be looking at something that's more of a niche case for Azure Log Analytics, but what I wanted to do is create a way to get my logs from my firewall up into Azure, and with that I'm going to have a Log Analytics workspace where I can use that data and create some views and queries into that data using Log Analytics that I can also use in other things like Azure Sentinel, which is where I'm going to be going with this. So to do this, basically what I'm going to do is just look at how to configure my firewall and how to get the data out of my firewall up into Azure. But first I'm going to go to Azure portal, configure that, and or at least show you how I configured it to make it work. And then once I have that done, I'm going to go over to my firewall, show you where I did that, and then I'm going to go back over to Log Analytics and then show you some of the data that's coming in from my firewall. So it's just a way to get a configuration of data into my Log Analytics workspace so that I can go downstream of that with Azure Sentinel to alert on it and do those kinds of things that you can do with it, which we'll be talking about over the next few weeks. Okay, I'm here in my Log Analytics workspace, and the first thing I need to do is configure it so that it can receive the syslog from my firewall. Now, to do this, it's pretty straightforward. You can turn on Syslog by going into agent configuration. And now under agent configuration, you'll see a couple of different agents right here that you can configure. Of course, you can get telemetry from Windows and Linux. I'm interested in Syslog here. Now, for my firewall, I'm using a firewall called Untangle, which is a small to medium-sized business-oriented firewall. It's not what I wouldn't consider it a commercial enterprise-grade firewall, but it's certainly useful for my home and my home office and for small businesses and medium-sized businesses as well. But it doesn't have a native plugin for Monitor, but it's actually pretty easy to get it set up inside of Monitor by turning on Syslog right here. And so with this, you basically just want to add a facility, and the one that it reports on is called Local 5, which I already have here. And it uses the info notification, but I just turned it all on, and I guess so that just in case, right? But I turned on emergency alert, critical error, warning, notice, info, and debug on Local 5, which is the facility name that it is going to be reporting on from the firewall. And once you have that, you hit apply, and then that will basically send out a message down into the firewall to start logging this data, and it's going to be collecting anything that has that priority set on it for that particular facility name. And so that's how you configure the agent. But first you have to install it. So I'm going to talk about how to do that as well. The first thing I need to do is open up SSH on Untangle, which is my firewall here. This is the dashboard for it after I've logged in. So I'm going to go to config, I'm going to go to network right here, and then I'm going to go to advanced and then go over here to access rules. And I've already enabled it. So I have enable SSH, and that's basically going to open up SSH for this. Now, once I'm done with this, I'm going to turn that off, but that's how you would enable it or disable it for Untangle. Once it's enabled, you can click save, and then that's going to open up that port for SSH logins into that server. So if you've never actually used Untangle's SSH console before, what you have to do is get into the Untangle UI, which is on the virtual machine or the physical machine, and you have to first launch terminal. And the first time you do that, it's going to ask you, it's going to give you root admin permissions. And once you click terminal, it's going to enable the terminal with root level permissions on the box. So once you've done that, that's set, and you don't have to do anything else. And this will allow you to connect it to it remotely once SSH is enabled as well. And once the terminal is enabled, you just need to SSH it in the box, which is fairly easy. So you do SSH, and then you want to put in root as the user at, and then whatever the IP address for your firewall is, or it can be the host name if you have a host name resolution going on as well. And if you've never logged into it before, it'll give you something about a prompt about accepting the certificate. You would accept it. Then you would put in the admin password for your Untangle server, and then you will have root level access into your Untangle box. Now, again, anything you do here is not supported, so just buyer beware type stuff here. Everything that I'm doing here is not officially supported by Untangle, but what I'm doing here, I know it works because I've been using it for a while now. In any case, I'm logged into it, and let's go over and run some commands against this. So to install the Log Analytics workspace tools, you can go to this page here, and it'll give you instructions on how to do it. I'm just going to give you the short version here because I'm running on a Debian-based distro here. This is pretty straightforward to do. So I basically just need to grab this command right here. And I don't need a proxy. If you're using a proxy, fine. If you want to use for some other clouds, it just gives you more details there. This one is probably going to be the one that most people are going to use right here. And that's this first command. So copy it. And then you want to open that up inside of a text editor because you need to get your workspace and your primary key right here for those purposes. So for me, to get those, you can go over here to Agent Management, and under Agent Management, you can grab your workspace ID and your key right here. So you would copy those, and then you would paste those into your key, and that will give you access to the Log Analytics workspace with this installer. So I'm going to paste that in, grab the key there, the workspace ID, and then I'm going to grab the key, and I'm going to blur this all out in the video too, so you don't see it. And then I'm going to run this command against the particular box that I have going on here, and then you can run this. And once it runs, it'll install the OMS agent. Since I've already run this, I don't need to run it again. But basically, you put the key and the workspace ID in your command, hit enter, and it will automate the installation of that. Once OMS is up and running, you'll be good to go for the OMS side. So then what you need to configure then is to connect your Untangle box to OMS, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Now, the last thing to do is to set up the connection between Untangle and the OMS agent that is now installed on here. And you do that by going to config and clicking on events. And then you have Syslog right here. Now, to do this, you want to enable the remote syslog, and then you want to put the host name for the actual local box here. This won't let you put in localhost or 127.0.0.1, but the workaround is to put in the name for the box. In my case, it's called Untangle, and so that is going to resolve to the local IP address anyway, and so it's just going to let me log to that local OMS agent, and then I need to put it on the default port, which is 25.224 for the local port here, and then I'm going to use UDP for there. Now, if you want to tune the events that get reported back to the syslog, what you can do then is you can go into this events right here, and this, I've currently got everything going up there. So every class of event can go up there. But if you drop this down, you can see that there are all kinds of events that you can put up in here, and you can put basically whatever apps you have installed. You can put those events into this, and it will then report that all those events up to the Syslog server on Azure after it's going to the OMS agent, which is locally running on this box. I selected all, and basically what that's going to do is it's going to log the various kinds of things that I have here. It's going to give me firewall events, and it's going to give me application control events and these other types of events that are going on here as well. So lots of things that you can get out of this that are useful information. So basically just going to log these, and then I'm going to save that, and then you should start seeing telemetry going up into Azure Log Analytics. So let's go over to Azure Log Analytics and see what that looks like. So here on Azure Log Analytics, it's pretty straightforward. What I've been doing here is I've been playing with some queries that will look at various things in here. So everything's coming on local 5. So if I wanted to get something based on a particular firewall rule, for instance, this is a firewall rule that I have set up in my firewall. So basically what this is going, this query right here is under the log management right here. So I see syslog, and this is everything that is happening inside of my Untangle environment here. So it's coming on local 5 here. Now, if I drill down into one of these events right here, I can see the syslog message is the object that is being sent over from Untangle. So this is all the Untangle data. The other stuff is the metadata that came along with it through the Syslog. But this is going to be where the class is firewall event, the rule ID, and that corresponds to the rule ID in my firewall. And then this is the session ID. So the session ID is useful for looking up information. There's ways to get this parsed out if you want to do that. But I'm just kind of giving you kind of a crash course on how to make this work. And once you have the Syslog data, the session ID, I can take this session ID. This is some rule that was blocked, and on my rule 102 on the firewall right here, I can actually take the same query and I can modify it slightly where the syslog message contains that ID, and I can get up pretty much all the various events that happened related to that session ID, and it will just basically kind of give me the breakdown of everything that's happened with that given session ID as soon as it runs. So this will tell me, a couple things about it, and this is telling me, the actual data that's coming through, and this is the app data that had. And the session event is just showing me the session data, which is the host name, the IP port, the port, and so on. And so where things are happening. And then this is the firewall event, and this is the session event right here. So this is giving me session and data, various types of data that I can get about this. And this is useful information that I can use to get things like the remote IP and other things. So I can correlate this data based on that session ID and get data in and out of this. So this is the Untangle data concerning destination ports, client ports, all that kind of thing, country codes, different protocols, just a lot of different pieces of data here that I can use for tuning things that I'm going to be using downstream of this in Sentinel. So a lot of valuable information here, and this is really a cool way to get data from Untangle into Azure Log Analytics, which then you can use inside of Azure for alerting purposes, for correlating data as with apps, whatever it might be if you're logging things. But hopefully this will be helpful for folks that are using Untangle. If not, it'll at least give you an idea of how you can connect other devices that aren't supported natively by Log Analytics into Log Analytics, and you can use these to get data back into your Log Analytics workspace and use it for other things that exist inside of your environments. If you like this content, please consider visiting us online at www.wintellect.com, and there you can find about services that Wintellect offers, including training and consulting services. Also, please consider subscribing to this channel by clicking on the subscribe button and clicking the bell icon to get notifications when new content becomes available, and also comment down below. You can also follow me on Twitter at @TheOneMule, and also follow Wintellect on Twitter at WintellectNow or at Wintellect. We are constantly posting things about Azure-related technologies and things related to software development. You can also reach us by email at consulting@wintellect.com. Until next time, thank you.